The texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
That Ventura had a choice and that she chose to participate in those sexual encounters.
Where she is entertaining other people in the bedroom. He enjoyed having the freak-offs.
She's being asked specifically about the drug use.
She is clearly excited about a freak-off.
As prosecutors disclosed text conversations between Diddy and his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura, the music mogul lost all control courtroom. Did you see what just transpired in the Diddy trial? These messages weren't simply anyone's. They included information that clearly refuted claims Diddy had been making for months. As Diddy's attorneys rushed to limit the harm, the judge had to issue an order. And that was only the start of the day.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs' desires. "I'm always ready to freak off," one message said.
She was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009, "I'm always ready to freak off." There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it going.
Day 4 of the Diddy trial began like any other. Quiet courtroom, soft whispers, and the usual legal formalities. Diddy appeared composed in his tailored suit, calmly leaning over to speak with his attorneys. Everything seemed routine until the prosecutor suddenly announced new evidence. Previously undisclosed text messages between Diddy and Cassie. The room instantly shifted. Diddy's face went pale, his breathing turned shallow, and his hands gripped the table tightly. A seasoned journalist said they had never seen him lose control so completely. Then Diddy stood up, shaking off his lawyer's hand, and took a few steps toward the judge's bench. His attorneys jumped up, one blocking his path as the judge banged the gavel, calling for order. Court officers rushed in as Diddy muttered angrily under his breath. His lead attorney had to physically guide him back to his seat, whispering urgently. The judge called a 15-minute recess, but the damage was already done. Diddy had lost his cool in front of everyone, and reporters were already typing frantically. What made the outburst so shocking was that the text hadn't even been read yet. Just the mention of them caused his meltdown. When court resumed, Diddy sat rigid as his lawyer requested a sidebar. Minutes later, the prosecution displayed the text on screen, revealing a side of his relationship with Cassie that completely contradicted his public claims. Now, everyone knew why he had reacted the way he did.
Ventura's attorney is optimistic outside of court.
Doing great. I said she was ready, and I think she's demonstrating that. The facts are the facts, the texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear as the case goes on and Cassie's testimony goes on, and we'll see what the jury does.
And finally, we'll talk about Justin Bieber because he is finally addressing the Diddy stuff. There's been long speculation that somehow he's involved.
Surprised it took so long to address.
Well, he's clearing that up now, and also we'll talk about how people are scared for Justin Bieber because they think he's in a cult. They have to have it.
By the end of today, Cassie will be done. So they have all day today to ask her whatever they want to ask her.
Because obviously, she's about to pop. And that's like...
Which is totally understandable.
So if she did pop, if she did give birth, let's say the technical term, over the weekend, you know what would happen then, Devin?
I don't.
Mistrial, baby.
Why do you say that? What?
Because she's due back on the stand to give testimony. And if she can't give testimony
No,
anymore,
she's giving testimony today.
I know. I was saying, what if...
Oh, like she gave birth and then
that's why. That's the
delayed.
reason. If she wasn't pregnant, I don't think the judge would have said you have to finish by today.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. Obviously. That's the whole, that's the whole crux of the argument.
Obviously.
Yeah.
You didn't explicitly, spell
but
it out.
But Diddy's team is also pissed off because they're like, we want as much time as we can have.
Her voice is low at times. The defense did tell her if it's too much, I can read them, but there were many times early on this morning where she read some of those explicit details where she is clearly excited about a freak off and talks about entertaining other people in the bedroom.
And what has Diddy's demeanor been in this cross-examination as well?
There was a moment where Sean Combs was nodding in agreement when they brought up a message that he sent her where he said, you know, one of my favorite times of the freak offs is when we're able to make love after. And then she responds, that's the same for me. Now, what's interesting here is that that does match what she told prosecutors or what she's been telling the jury all along, which is she did this and she said, but she really wanted to spend time with him after the fact. So he was shaking his head at this message where he's almost, I guess, agreeing that he did say, without him saying it, he enjoyed having the freak offs and then having sex with her after the fact. And her saying, I agree with you. I love having sex with you after too.
Prosecution strategically waited until day 4 to reveal explosive texts between Diddy and Cassie after laying a careful foundation. Spanning 2016 to 2019, the messages started innocently but quickly turned dark. A July 2018 text read, "You think you can just walk away? I made you. I can break you." Cassie replied, "Please stop threatening me. I'm scared." Diddy answered, "You should be." The courtroom gasped. Another 2019 exchange showed obsessive control. "I have people watching you everywhere." Chillingly, these texts match public events. Just days after Diddy called Cassie the love of my life, he texted, "This arrangement works because you do what I say." Prosecutors emphasize patterns. Threats, apologies, gifts, then control again. A key 2018 text said, "I'm sorry about last night," aligning with Cassie's assault claims. The final message warned, "Your silence has been paid for. There will be consequences," contradicting his public claims of a peaceful breakup. The text shattered his image. Diddy's own words exposed a disturbing truth.
The things that the Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show, this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was, hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So...
she's out of the freak-off scene. She is, when she's with Kid Cudi, or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-off if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? Yeah. I know it's kind of like a mental,
yeah.
She still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere, dude.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right. Final story of the week. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those, rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? Says if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun, at, one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why, all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off stuff.
Since Cassie filed her lawsuit, Diddy repeatedly denied all allegations, calling their relationship loving and their breakup mutual. He told Entertainment Tonight he'd never raise a hand to a woman, and posted on Instagram calling her claims false and money-driven. His team even held a press conference and shared old happy photos to discredit her. But the private text told a different story: threats, control, and fear. While Diddy claimed respect, he texted, "Nobody will believe you, and your silence has been paid for." The prosecution created a timeline comparing his public statements to private messages, often from the same day, exposing blatant contradictions. One side showed public denials of abuse. The other, an apology for what happened last night. Legal analysts said it destroyed his credibility. The contrast was clearest where he denied ever being violent. Yet his texts hinted otherwise. His image of a respectful ex collapsed. Even claims that he supported Cassie's career unraveled with messages showing control and surveillance. Throughout it all, Cassie sat quietly, never looking at him. Her calm presence added emotional weight, while her lawyer gently offered support. Diddy's public persona crumbled under his own words.
Violence captured on cameras at a Los Angeles hotel ensued. You can see Combs kicking and dragging her. But the defense said Ventura's participation in the freak-offs was at times her idea, showing a text message from days earlier that said, "Baby, I want to FO so bad." "You proposed a freak-off," a defense attorney said. "You kept asking him." Combs' lawyers revealed he overdosed on painkillers in 2012, asking Ventura, were the worst years associated in any way with his drug use? "Yeah, I would say." The defense hoping to convince the jury Combs became violent not to coerce Ventura into sex, but because he was an addict. They argue he may have been abusive, but that he's not guilty of sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And then I think things might have just spiraled out of control. And at the end, do I think that she wanted to do those things? No.
No, I don't think she wanted to do it at the end.
But it
could
does
be more explicit about it.
True.
Like, I wish there was a paper trail of her being more, because then he'd be cooked.
Yes, I agree with that. And yeah, these texts don't look good because it does make it look like she was into the freak-offs and all the freaky stuff.
While Diddy unraveled, Cassie sat poised in the front row behind the prosecution, dressed in a simple black pantsuit with her hair pulled back. She looked calm and focused, quietly taking notes and conferring with her lawyers. But when the prosecution revealed the text messages, her posture changed, shoulders tensed, eyes locked on the screen, never glancing at Diddy. Her breathing shifted during the most disturbing texts, especially when Diddy responded, "You should be," to her fear. Her hand trembled as she reached for water. She closed her eyes briefly, reliving the trauma. Observers noted that these weren't just messages, they were lived experiences. Her legal team remained close, offering tissues and quiet support. The courtroom setup added to the tension. Diddy and Cassie sat 30 feet apart, separated by officers, one placed directly in their line of sight. Even during Diddy's outburst, Cassie stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, never reacting outwardly. When the final message about consequences appeared, she briefly closed her eyes, took a breath, and nodded at her attorney's whisper. Though visibly shaken, she stayed composed. Rumors swirled that the prosecution might now call her to testify about the texts. The room's emotional weight was so intense, even the judge seemed moved, calling a 20-minute recess. As Cassie exited, one tear slipped down her cheek, quickly wiped away before she stood tall and walked out with her team.
They have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in. They're very alert. And I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura. And also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, 2 of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through. But I think that's something that you think about on both sides, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, their third child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but at the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we are.
Judge Howard Richter had maintained strict control since the trial began, refusing to let Diddy's celebrity status disrupt courtroom decorum. When Diddy suddenly stood up and moved toward the bench, without permission and visibly agitated, Judge Richter responded immediately, ordering him to sit and dispatching court officers to block his path. The outburst broke several courtroom protocols and risked contempt of court. Officers quickly intervened, preventing escalation. After a 15-minute recess, the judge directly warned Diddy any further disruptions would result in contempt charges. He also chastised Diddy's attorney, demanding control of the defendant and issuing a formal reprimand that was added to the court record. The judge's attitude shifted noticeably, but a fairly balanced approach now leaned in favor of the prosecution. Richter even took the rare step of instructing the jury to ignore Diddy's outburst, emphasizing that verdicts must be based solely on evidence. Legal analysts noted the shift in courtroom power dynamics. Diddy's loss of control gave the judge reason to limit defense arguments and scrutinize every move more harshly. What began as a defense team confidently dismissing Cassie's allegations had now become a scramble for damage control. The released text messages, combined with Diddy's courtroom behavior, painted a damning picture. Not a respectful ex, but of a man who made threats, exerted control, and lost composure when exposed. The trial had taken a dramatic turn. And with day 5 approaching, many wondered if Diddy's team would push for a settlement to prevent further damaging revelations. The case was no longer about legal strategy. It had become about survival, with Diddy's entire public image and career hanging in the balance.